This deal drops just days after the most furious diplomatic row in NATO's 77-year history, following President Trump's explosive comments claiming NATO allies stayed off the front lines in Afghanistan. The alliance is effectively paralyzed. World leaders aren't just angry, they are mobilizing. They aren't issuing a press release ban. They are executing a strategic ban. They are building a new economic circulatory system that bypasses Washington entirely. The narrative that NATO is broken isn't a prediction anymore. As of this morning, it is the operational reality. The United States is currently withdrawing from 66 international organizations. We have tariffs of 41% hitting our closest allies. And now the allies have hit back, not with war, but with ink. In this video, we are going deep. We will expose the exact terms of the EU-India deal signed today, the specific insults that caused the UK and Germany to turn their backs on the White House, and the terrifying economic reality of an isolated America in 2026. This is the story of how the West divorced the United States. To understand why Ursula von der Leyen and Narendra Modi are smiling in New Delhi today, we first have to understand why Keir Starmer and Boris Pistorius are seething in London and Berlin. The catalyst was not a policy paper, it was an insult. Last Thursday on Fox Business, President Trump made a claim that essentially rewrote the history of the war in Afghanistan. In a bid to justify his isolationist stance and his threats to leave NATO, he stated that America's allies, nations like the UK, Canada, Germany, and Poland, quote, stayed a little back, a little off the front lines, while American troops did the fighting. The diplomatic fallout was instantaneous and nuclear. For the first time in decades, the British Prime Minister publicly rebuked a sitting US president with visceral anger. Sir Keir Starmer called the comments, frankly, appalling and insulting. Let's look at the data, because the data is what triggered the fury. The United Kingdom lost 457 service personnel in Afghanistan. Canada lost 158. Germany lost 59. Denmark per capita suffered some of the heaviest casualties of the coalition. These weren't soldiers guarding the rear. They were in Helmand province, they were in Kandahar, they were dying in the same dust as American Marines. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius didn't hold back. Breaking diplomatic protocol, he went on German public broadcaster ARD and demanded an apology. He said, "It is just not right and it is disrespectful to talk about the dead of your allies in that way. To claim something else today is simply not true." This isn't just hurt feelings. This is the disintegration of trust. The Article 5 guarantee, the promise that an attack on one is an attack on all, relies entirely on the belief that the U.S. respects the sacrifice of its allies. When the President of the United States dismisses the blood spilled by British and German soldiers as staying back, he isn't just being rude, he is telling them that their alliance is worthless to him. And the reaction wasn't just words, it was a realization. Europe realized that the Trump storm wasn't weather they had to wait out, it was a climate change they had to adapt to. If the U.S. president doesn't value their blood, he certainly won't protect their borders. This realization accelerated everything. It turned the slow-moving negotiations with India into a frantic sprint. If NATO is broken, and if the transatlantic trade bridge is burning under 25% steel tariffs and 15% auto tariffs, Europe needed a new partner. They looked east, and they found the world's most populous democracy waiting for them. So let's look at what happened today, January 27, 2026. While Washington was arguing about tariffs, Brussels and New Delhi finalized a deal that has been in the works, on and off, for nearly 20 years. The European Commission calls it the mother of all deals. And the numbers back that up. This is not a minor adjustment. This is a total economic integration of the Eurasian Rim, excluding the United States. Here is the breakdown of the authentic data released this morning. The agreement creates a free trade zone of over 2 billion people. It eliminates tariffs on 96% of EU goods entering India. This is unprecedented. India has historically been one of the most protectionist economies in the world. They don't just open their doors, but for Europe, they kicked them down. Let's talk about cars. For decades, if you wanted to sell a German BMW or an Italian Lamborghini in India, you faced a tariff of 110%. That is a prohibitive tax that made European cars impossible to sell at scale. Under this deal, that tariff drops to 10%. This is a gold rush for the German auto industry, Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW, who are currently being squeezed by Trump's tariffs in the US market. They have effectively swapped the declining American consumer for the rising Indian middle class. It's not just cars, it's wine and spirits. Indian tariffs on wine were 150%. They are being slashed. Machinery tariffs of 44%, gone. Chemicals tariffs of 22%, gone. Pharmaceuticals, gone. In return, India gets tariff-free access for 99% of its exports to the EU. Textiles, leather, jewelry, sectors that employ millions of Indians, now have a direct tax-free pipeline to Paris, Berlin, and Rome. The timing is not a coincidence. Just as Indian exporters are facing Trump's new reciprocal tariffs of 25% to 40%, the European door swings wide open. Just as European manufacturers face a 15% wall in the US, the Indian door swings wide open. This is a classic pincer movement. The two largest democracies in the world, by population and aggregate GDP, are hedging against the instability of the third. Ursula von der Leyen put it bluntly in New Delhi today. We have sent a signal to the world that rules-based cooperation still delivers great outcomes. That signal is directed at one man, Donald Trump. The message is simple. We do not need you to prosper. The title of this video mentions a ban. Now, legally, you cannot kick the United States out of NATO or the WTO easily. But in geopolitics, you don't need a legal eviction notice. You just need to change the locks. And that is what a soft ban is. A soft ban is when allies stop sharing intelligence because they don't trust your president. A soft ban is when trade routes are redrawn to bypass your ports. A soft ban is when the G7 summit becomes a G6+1, where the real decisions are made in the hallway before the American president arrives. We are seeing this happen in real time. While Europe integrates with India, the US is retreating into a bizarre isolation. President Trump has launched his Board of Peace, an alternative international forum that includes Vladimir Putin but excludes traditional Western allies. He has withdrawn the U.S. from 66 international organizations in the last year alone, citing globalist agendas. The result? The world is moving on. Look at the strategic autonomy push in Europe. For years, strategic autonomy was a buzzword in Brussels. It meant Europe should be able to defend itself without America. It was a dream. Today, it is a survival strategy. The EU-India deal includes a massive chapter on defense and security. They aren't just trading wine and cars. They are discussing maritime security in the Indo-Pacific. They are discussing cybersecurity. They are discussing things they used to discuss with Washington. India, too, is pivoting. India was a key member of the Quad, US, India, Japan, Australia, designed to counter China. But with the U.S. becoming unpredictable, imposing tariffs on Indian goods and threatening visas, India is diversifying. They are betting that a partnership with Europe is safer than a marriage with MAGA. So, what does this mean for you, the American viewer, or for the global economy? The isolation of the United States is not cost-free. In fact, it is incredibly expensive. President Trump believes that tariffs will force companies to return to the U.S. He calls it the Great Rebuilding. And to his credit, he did secure a massive $550 billion investment pledge from Japan in July 2025. But economists warn that these pledges are often paper tigers, promises that evaporate when the economic weather turns bad. The reality on the ground is inflation. When you put a 25% tariff on global imports, prices go up. But the bigger danger is market access. American farmers, soybean growers in Iowa, corn growers in Nebraska relied on export markets. When Europe and India sign a deal that eliminates tariffs between them, American farmers are left on the outside looking in. A French farmer can now sell wheat to India tax-free. An American farmer has to pay a tariff. Who do you think the Indian buyer will choose? This is called trade diversion, and it is the silent killer of economic superpowers. The EU-India deal gives European companies a first-mover advantage in the Indian market of 1.45 billion people. By the time the U.S. wakes up and tries to negotiate its own deal, the shelves will already be stocked with German appliances, French fashion, and Italian food. We are losing the market of the future because we are obsessed with the grievances of the past. By 2030, the EU-India trade corridor is projected to double in volume. Meanwhile, US trade with Europe is projected to shrink by 15% due to the ongoing tariff war. This is the math of decline. You don't lose your superpower status in a single battle. You lose it because everyone else starts doing business without you. And we cannot talk about this diplomatic breakdown without mentioning the absurd yet dangerous Greenland crisis. It sounds like a joke, but it is a major driver of the current NATO fracture. President Trump has renewed his interest in purchasing Greenland from Denmark. When Denmark refused again, tensions spiked. Trump threatened tariffs on Denmark, a NATO ally. This isn't just about real estate, it's about the Arctic. As the ice melts, new shipping lanes and resources are opening up. The US wants control. But by bullying Denmark, a loyal NATO member, Trump has terrified the rest of the Nordic countries. Sweden, Finland, and Norway are now looking at the US not as a protector, but as a predator. This has pushed the Nordic bloc deeper into the arms of the European Union's defense mechanisms and further away from NATO's US-led structure. It is another brick in the wall of isolation. History will likely look back at January 2026 as the turning point, the moment when the rimland of Eurasia, Europe and India, decided to join hands and close the gate on the Atlantic power. Donald Trump promised to put America first, and in a way, he has succeeded. America is now alone, first in isolation, first in tariffs, but last in the room where the future is being written. The ban isn't official. There is no piece of paper expelling the US from NATO, but when your allies build a new world economy that excludes you, when they sign the biggest deals in history without you, when they demand apologies for your insults to their fallen soldiers, you have to ask yourself, did we leave them or did they leave us? The EU-India deal is signed, the ink is dry, the tariffs are up, the walls are high. Welcome to the new world. It's a furious one. And for the first time in a century, America is flying solo. This is a rapidly developing story. The ramifications of the EU-India deal will take months to fully materialize, and the U.S. response, likely more tariffs, is expected within days. If you want to stay ahead of the geopolitical curve, make sure you are subscribed. We are tracking the money, the treaties, and the silence between world leaders. What do you think? Is this soft ban the end of U.S. hegemony? Or is Trump right to demand more from allies, even if it means burning bridges? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.